Welcome back to another episode of the Fresh Crits of Melbourne. You're here with your host, Steve Flack, and today we are down with the lovely Hawthorn Cycling Club at the Kew Boulevard for another Wednesday night Teardrop crit. It was the last one of the season. Absolutely devastated. Last crit race down at Hawthorn for the season, but the weather delivered. Blue skies, the suns were out, guns were out. We're all looking fantastic in a nice group of about 20 to 30 riders in this race. It was a short crit. Only 26 to 27 minutes plus 3, so an estimated about 31 minutes of actual riding time due to the limited daylight hours that we have. It meant it was on from the absolute start, so attacks came in hot and heavy, and there was a lot of action. So I'm going to take you on a little bit of a journey today. So just with this race, I came in with a bit of a plan. I've picked up, in the last few races that I've been in, Hawthorn and in Footscray, I've picked up thirds and seconds. And I was really looking to really learn from those mistakes that I made in those races and take out the win here. So I went in with a plan. I wanted to stay near the front of the bike race at all times. I didn't mind if I had to take on a little bit more wind and sit at the front. I was committed to staying at the front of the bike race, especially in that last lap. We'll talk about it a little bit later. But I wanted to stay right at the front of the bike race. So let's see how this one plans out, and we'll get stuck in. So this one had the usual suspects in there. Matty and Paul, the breakaway specialists. Behind on my rear wheel now, we have Tommy Butler, who places really, really well in this one. So make sure you keep an eye out on him. He's in my rear cam now, and I'll point him out throughout the race as well. So he's got Kerry in front, the guy who takes the best line around this corner. As you can see, I feel like I've slowly tweaked that line. If you have a look at some previous videos, you can see how that's kind of improved now as I start out wide and cut in a lot earlier. Unfortunately, with this race, the sun was right in your eyes on this top straight, so it didn't make things easy. You can see Tom there launching an attack on the outside, but he looks behind. No one really wants to go with him. It's still very early in the race, only 6 minutes in, and I'm happy to let this blue rider roll around in front. He provides a fantastic draft, so I can just sit in there and pedal, under 200 watts as I get an easy lift up to the front. So if you look at the heart rate, it's pretty high right now. 178 was 180 just a couple of seconds earlier. This race started really, really hot, and when you know a race is gonna, when you're in the race and you notice that it is hot, you just got to hang on for as long as you can, because obviously when the race starts really, really hot, then it's eventually going to start slowing down. So as long as you can just sustain that first, 10, 15 minutes of it being quite fast, it's eventually going to slow down. Then you can recover, or if you're fit enough, launch another attack off there. So we're coming now into the bottom corner. I'm in about 6 wheel. As we roll around, hitting that corner, hitting the apex perpendicular as close as you possibly can, and bang, straight on the power again, surging back up the hill. So yeah, wasn't an easy start to the race, but that just basically means that it's going to slow up a little bit later on. So let's check that one out. All right, so we've skipped about just a minute in, and as you can see, the heart rate has dropped. The speed is relatively low. There's a whole bunch of swarming going on in the rear camera and the front. And as soon as that happens, boom, you get guys being surging attacks off the front, because when the pace is low, that's when you want to hit the group with a bit of an attack. But obviously this is a short course. It is quite hard to stay away as we come to this bottom corner, a couple wide, almost a little bit of a touch there as we straight back onto the power, spiking up to almost 1,000 watts as we surge back up the hill again. You see the guy Tom's Coffee. They're a strong team sitting on my wheel there. And interesting about this is there's a passing line. You go on the inside of the course here, you can make up 5 or 6 places without having to do too much work. And I was fortunate enough here to get a sit in from one of the guys as we crest the top of the hill now. Almost 9.5 minutes into the race. The pace is slow. Everyone's quite bunched up together, and when it's like that, there's going to be more attacks being launched off the front. So because it is so early in the race, you are constantly looking at little moments throughout the race where you can have a short break, a rest, a sit in, and not really having to touch the pedals to recover, because like I said, it's going to be a short race. with it only being 26, 27 minutes plus 3, we're already, a third into this race. So looking for those little moments where you can rest and recover is so important, as well as trying to stay up near the front. So I've seen this blue rider come across my wheel now, and I'm thinking, perfect. He was coming in with a bit of speed. I'm going to sit in with him so he can drag me to the front of the race. Unfortunately, that's not to happen. He got boxed in, I get boxed in, and now I'm sitting, 15th wheel back now, coming into this bottom corner, which is going to be 3 wide, which is always a little bit sketchy. You don't want anyone to touch wheels or clip a pedal here and bring you down. So bang, straight onto the power again, spiking up to 700 watts, but I'm getting a nice sit. I'm staying seated in the saddle. I'm not getting out of the saddle. Every time up this hill, I'm trying to stay seated because I guess it feels like you're doing a little bit less work that way. It's all personal preference at the end of the day, but being out of the saddle, I tend to use more energy and that heart rate spikes up a lot more than if I'm seated. So we crest the hill once again. The group looks relatively together, but you can see Tommy Butler wanting to do a bit of work. One guy's launched off the front and Tommy wants to join him, so he puts in a bit of a seated acceleration, but obviously launching off the front like that, it's very easy to sit in the draft. So he basically is just dragging the peloton forward and ultimately stringing the rest of the group out. So I'm fortunate enough here to have once again found Blue Rider here, and he has put me in the perfect passing lane where I've been able to sit in. He's dragged me up to the front of the race. I was 15th, around about middle of the pack, and now I'm sitting, 5th wheel up to the front. So looking for those riders that are going to drag you up to the front where you don't have to do any work is key in these sorts of short and sharp races. Boom, there goes Paul. Wants to get into that get into the bottom corner first as he carves in there. But obviously, because he's hit that group with speed with very short time before he has to jump on the brakes, everyone's going to be able to sit in. And that attack proved relatively meaningless now as he's having to drop wheels, take on wind, and is now cresting the wheels in 3rd position. But just as that has happened, I'm not too sure if you saw that. You can scroll or rewind the video if you need to. 2 riders have now launched off the front, cresting over that hill, putting in a big effort to get some good separation to the group. Now, should we be chasing this down or should we be letting it go? It doesn't look like it's too threatening. It's 2 riders. We're 12 and a half minutes into a basically 30-minute race. 15 minutes of staying away. That gap doesn't look like it's getting any bigger. I'm pretty happy personally with that distance between us and the group. If that got any longer, I'd start to get a little bit nervous, but I'm happy with them sitting at the front at the moment. However, if a few more people decide to join that group, then it puts me a little bit on edge. As you can see, a rider here on the right-hand side bridging across to try to join those 2 riders up the front of the up the road here. So once again, that gap isn't too long. I'm putting in a bit of a threshold effort here to bridge across. That gap, what is that? Let's count. 1, 2, 3. Let's say, give them 4 seconds gap up the road now. That's not threatening enough for me to be too concerned. Like I said, it's coming into almost 15 minutes. We're not even halfway into the race yet, so there is plenty of time to shut that group down. And as we crest this hill, none of those guys look really committed to the break, and they get caught. But just as that happened, boom, there goes Matty Barlow. He is a breakaway specialist. He is always looking to get away early, and he's got some really good gap here. So he launched at a perfect time. Just as the group in front had been caught, those 3 riders, everybody slows down. So Matt saw this as an opportunity to launch a smart attack off the front. And now he's got, another 4, maybe even 5 second gap. You can't even see him as we come around this corner now. So a really, really smart attack from Matt. Unfortunately for him, he would be hoping that there'd be another couple of breakaway riders to come across with him and to help him rotate and pull turns. If you want to know a little bit about breakaways and stuff, check out the last video that had all details about staying away on a break. So you can see, yeah, Matty's up the road now. We're all soft pedaling-ish. We're doing 300 watts, 40 k's an hour. No one looks too keen to chasing that attack, but you can see there's Paul here on the right-hand side going to thread the needle between the group and the gutter because he sees there being a bit of interest in Matt being able to stay away. So Paul and Matt are both breakaway type riders. So Paul's going to try to get across to Matt in order to help him along during the break. But Paul takes a bit of a dodgy line through that bottom corner, isn't able to hold his speed, and then is now sitting basically at the front of the race once again, burning matches as he's trying to bridge across. So as much as I love you, Paul, I'm not too sure if that was the greatest move you had in this race, but with Matt still up the road and plenty more time left in this one, let's see how it all plays out. So we've still got Matt up the road. Paul is pacing on the front. When you see the rider on the right here, the green rider obviously thinks that Matty's break is for real, so he wants to get a part of that action to make the most of his entrance fee. He tries to bridge across and get some good separation here. Look, he's almost got 1, 2, 3, let's say 4, another 4-second gap to him after that little bit of an attack. That's not too bad leading into that bottom corner, provided he can sustain it, cresting over the top. So you see the blue riders put in a bit of a surge here. I can see Paul's not really wanting to do the work in order to stick onto his wheel, so that leaves up to me. It puts me up to 600 watts in order to chase down that draft. Obviously not ideal when you're trying to conserve energy, but it's kind of what you have to do. The blue rider looks like he wants to bridge across to the green rider. So we're all kind of left in, you're going to do it, you're going to close it, not really. So a bit of a wasted effort across the board there as we top this, come around in this top corner here. Look, the reason why I'm not sitting in this draft is because I've entered this corner with too much speed. So I'm kind of just sitting away from him, maybe riding on the rear brake a little bit. Probably not ideal, but I do still want to continue staying in this blue rider's nice draft as we come into a faster part of the track now. Come at 48 Ks or dropping down a little bit now. It'll be no surprise when the group starts to swarm up and more attacks go off the front. So this rider's just pulled to the front, and although it might not have been an attack, it's definitely an effort to put down some watts. And I'm not too sure if that's to string everybody out, which it's definitely having an effect doing, or maybe this rider thought, look, Matt is still up the road. We can't even see him in the camera yet. Maybe we should be starting to think about chasing this one down. We're coming into 18 minutes into the race, which has about an estimated length of about 30 minutes. It's probably not a bad idea to start thinking about shutting that gap down. You know, I'm not even too sure if the rest of the peloton even knew that Matt was still away, but it's probably a smart idea from this rider to start starting to get the group to work in order to close that gap. So I'm thinking now this guy's been on the front a little bit. I'm going to put in a bit of a hero pull here to shut that group down. As much as I want Matt to take away a win and a breakaway, I also want to win myself. So it's time for me. The heart rate's spiking up to 188 beats a minute. I'm almost maxing out here, but I'm wanting to show that I'm interested for the group to work in order to chase that group down. We're coming into 55 kilometers an hour coming into the back straight here. I'm shortly going to flick an elbow, I hope, for another rider to come and pull across to show that we are interested. We want to shut that group down, but you just don't want one person sitting on the front doing all that work. So this rider, green rider, pulls across to the front, but the pace has now dropped down 37 kilometers an hour. So if we're really wanting to chase Matt down, we're going to have to be averaging 38 to 40 kilometers an hour in order to chase him back. So as we round that bottom corner for the 13th time, you can see the green rider putting in a bit of an effort here to create a bit of separation. He once again is throwing in another attacker, definitely making the most of his entrance fee in order to bridge across to Matt, who, like I said before, is still up the road. You can't see him. I don't know where he is. I don't know what the time gap is. And none of the riders in the peloton know either. So do we want to let that happen? You can see the green bike, the KOS rider on the right hand side here trying to bridge across, but everyone in the main peloton is not too interested. That gap is still very short. We think we can shut that down pretty easily. You can see in the rear camera now, everyone is swarming. We're trying to find our position into this left-hander here, the top corner. As you can see, it's almost 2, sometimes 3 riders wide into that corner, which is perfectly safe. It is quite a sweeping left-hander. It's quite nice. All right, so what we'll do now is with the 2 riders trying to bridge across, but it's probably not going to happen there. Not enough separation for us to let them get away. We're going to fast forward this race just in slightly, and we'll pick it up from there. All right, so we'll pick this up with coming into 22 minutes. There's only a few laps left. I guesstimate maybe 4 or 5. For those that are cheering Matt from home, unfortunately, it is now the time his breakaway is brought back. He stayed away for what he reckons is half the race, but we'll come back and have a look at that later, which is smart. Matt would have been looking behind and seeing the group getting closer and closer, so he probably decided to sit up, just reserve a couple of energy, reserve some energy anyway, and hopefully either he can look at jumping into the sprint at the end of the race, or trying to break away again, which might not work. But it's a smart move by Matt as he slowly gets engulfed by the peloton. He'll sit at the back, recover, reserve his energy in order to attack or do something else later in the race. So with him brought back, everybody sits up, takes a bit of a drink, pace is relatively low, but the Green Rider's noticed that the pace is low and he's decided to launch a bit of an attack off the front. And I think this is, if for those that are playing at home, maybe his 3rd or even 4th attack of the day. But like what we've spoken about before, if you're going to launch an attack, doing it whilst you're at the front of the race is probably not the best idea. It's very easy to shut those sorts of attacks down. So nothing really happens here. I come alongside, not too sure why, probably should be sitting in his draft, but just making sure I'm at the front of the race, that I'm not going to get boxed in. I know there's only a few more laps left, so making sure you're out of trouble, staying near the front of the bike race was my number one priority at this moment. What we'll do now is we'll skip in a couple of minutes, or fast forward rather, and pick this up for the next bit of attacks that happen. All right, we crest the hill once again and keep looking in the rear camera here as 2 riders now to the front as they launch some really well constructed attacks here. So you can see they've launched an attack. It's 24 minutes into a 26-27 plus 3 race. So we've got ultimately, let's say 5-6 minutes left in this bike race. They've launched a relatively good attack. Paul's in there as well. And nobody's really looking like they want to chase. Only now are people throwing down some watts. That blue rider at the front is putting in a big dig, and the green rider as well wanting to chase that one down. So I think that's a really good attack from Paul and the KOS rider. Right at a time where the group looked relatively vulnerable. We've been launching attacks all day. Why not try to send a couple of riders up the road now and try to stay away? So we're coming into the bottom corner now. Let's take this one nice and easy as we start out wide, cut in nice and sharp, hit that apex and straight onto the power, making sure you're using all the rotors you possibly can as we surge back up this hill, looking at 800 watts again. You can see that pink rider, he's slightly fatigued, as it's left to the green rider to do, again, all the work. So, let's have a bit of a look. If you have been watching the video, the whole thing, that green rider's been at the front for a majority of the race. He's been launching attack after attack after attack. I don't care who you are going to be fatigued after that. So, unfortunately, that attack with Paul and the KOS rider lasted basically 1 lap. It wasn't, they weren't able to sustain it. The group was too ready to bring that one back. So, kudos to them for giving that a crack. But now with only 4 laps left, I'm wanting to activate the plan that I spoke about earlier, and that is to stay near the front of the bike race as much as I possibly can. I don't mind if I have to take on a little bit extra wind, but I'm just going to surf my way and stay near the front, because that's my game plan from the very beginning. Stay near the front as we get a bit of away from the blue rider behind me. What a legend. So the pace has dropped with 38 Ks. Nobody's up the road. And I put a bit of a surge in here. As you can see in the shadows, it's an interesting thing. If you look in the shadows here, you can actually get a good idea of who's behind you. So I put in a little bit of a surge because I want to enter this corner first. I don't want to be stuck behind any riders. I want to take my own line and recover appropriately. And being at the front of a bike race like this, surging up the hill, I'm only having to put in 400, 500 watts. I'm not having to spike up to 800 to chase anyone or to chase anybody. So being able to conserve energy like this and control the pace of the group, if they want to come around, if they want to surge, go for it. I'm just going to surf wheels, which is what I'm looking to do. So that's why I'm sitting at the front here, conserving energy as we roll into, you can see on the sign on the left, we have 3 laps left, ladies and gentlemen. The group is really bunched up, but as you can see, one rider has just launched off the front of the bike race now, and he is putting in some good distance in front of us now. 1, 2, 3. I'll give it 4-second gap in front now, which is pretty big coming into 3 laps remaining. So I really don't mind that attack. I think it's quite a smart move. Everybody takes a while to look around to see if people are going to bridge across and try to shut that group down. You can see the group is fairly committed. 56 kilometers an hour coming into this back straight. Nobody wants to let anybody get away on a 3-lap flyer, so the group is interested, but I do like when a rider sends an attack up the road like that, it strings the entire group out. And that also brings an important point in there. When it does string the group out, that's the hardest possible time to make up spaces. So that's why coming into 3 laps left, so we ran this bottom corner, nice. Coming into 3 laps left, it is so important to be near the front of the bike race, because it is almost impossible to come around people when they're going 56 kilometers an hour as we surge straight back up to this hill. Have a look at this rider on the right-hand side, white helmet and black sheep nicks. They pull an absolute hero pull. I don't think they want to see, with 2 laps remaining, anybody getting away. So they get on the front now and just rip it in. They drop a gear down and just rip into that person's lead up the road. So if you look in the rear camera now, you can see how strung out everyone is. We are all pretty much single file as we enter this top corner for what is basically the second last time of the race. They're still on the front, putting down some big watts, and I'm more than happy. This is the perfect time, the perfect spot for me. I'm more than happy to sit second wheel, barely really touching the pedals. Yes, my heart rate is up, but I know I want to dig deep on the second last lap, so I'm doing what I can to stick onto this wheel. It's a perfect lift to chase that person down. So what do you do if you are not at the front of the race at the moment and you've found yourself at the back of the race at this point in time? Well, if I was you, I'd be looking to burn a match. As we ran this corner, this is the second last time. We're coming into the final lap now. So if you're in that sort of situation, if you find yourself there, you have to burn a match to get to the front of the race, because on that last lap, the pace is going to be double. Well, maybe not double, but it's going to be extremely high, and it's going to be a hell of a lot harder to move up places when it's on that final lap. So this rider here has towed me all the way back to this rider up to the front of the race. Now they've sat on the front doing big power for an entire lap. They look around, they see the whole group is there. They haven't flicked an elbow yet, but I'm happy to come around the outside and stay at the front of the race. Keep burning matches. My heart rate's at 186, but I know this is the last lap. I'm going to do whatever I can to stay at the front of the race, and I'm sure that's what everyone else is thinking as well. We round this top corner. I'm putting down some relatively big watts just to stay ahead. I'm thinking surf wheels, surf wheels, surf wheels. I see this blue rider come around in front. He's been a fantastic sit for me for a long time. So I'm trying to bump Tommy off the wheel there. It's quite hard. I don't want to stay boxed in. I see a whole nother riders come through on the right-hand side. I need to stay in that. I don't want to lose wheels. I don't want to be any less than 4th wheel coming into this bottom corner here. I've had to sacrifice 1 extra wheel here. I slam on the brakes. We round this corner and it's bang straight up onto the power. This is now a drag race to the top. Not in the best position I want to be in, but I do want to take the inside line. I want to cut through these 2 riders here. Absolutely throw down some watts and drag race my way to the front of the race, where when a plan comes together, you're absolutely stoked. I take out the win on this race. It is extremely close for the 3 riders behind me. I'm going to put up the results shortly, but what a race. I know it was a bit of a long one. Well, a lot of talking, I guess, but there was a lot to break down in today's race. It was absolutely fantastic. Really hot from the beginning. But if you liked it, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and make sure if you see yourself in the race, pop up in the comments. I love hearing from everyone. But thanks again, guys, for watching. It was another awesome race. It's also worth adding, if you have any footage of your own, recording any sort of crits and stuff, get in touch with me in the comments, because I'd love to see some of that footage and continue these sorts of videos throughout the off season. So that's pretty much a wrap. Thank you all again for watching. It's been an absolute pleasure putting these ones up. I love hearing from everyone. So I guess I'll see you next week, because we do have a couple more races left, so stay tuned. Cheers.